All right. So, welcome everybody into the room. Come on in. Come on in. My name is Pearl Robinson, and I am the founder of Pinnacle of Purpose Counseling and Consulting. And I'm so excited that you guys are here. So excited. This is our very first episode in the You Deserve Restoration, Healing Burnout in Community series. And we have Verna Johnson. Verna is one of our newest therapists at Pinnacle of Purpose, and she is very passionate about a lot of things. But perimenopause is what she's going to be talking to you guys about tonight. So I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to let Verna just kind of introduce herself to you guys, and then we're going to get into the conversation on this evening.
Hello, my name is Verna, and I'm a licensed master social worker. And I have been in social services or working with different populations since '99, and working with women's wellness is a passion of mine because I believe, there's a saying, women rule the world, or the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. And so women contribute many things. And when we go through transitions, and I think that it impacts everyone around us, including the community. And I think that we need to be the best that we can be.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. So let's start our conversation. We're talking about hormones, exhaustion, and identity tonight. And
Yes.
so tell me, um, what is your understanding of perimenopause and why does it impact just more than our physical bodies?
Well, perimenopause is the beginning or the cessation of your menstrual, your period. So that's the beginning of the end of your period. And what happens is that there's a hormonal shift in your estrogen. And so when your estrogen fluctuates, that causes a lot of neurobiological issues. It's the physical of what's going on behind, like what's happening in your brain. And it's not when people think of their period, because that's basically just your period ending, they don't realize it's your hormones that is going to impact your brain, which I don't know if people realize this. We really don't have control over our hormones.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
good. So when people say or women say, I'm not feeling like myself, essentially what's happening is this process that you're explaining to us right now.
Yes. The reason that they don't feel like themselves is because when your estrogen levels decrease, that impacts your brain. Now, I'm not a neurologist, but I'm going to try and explain. In our brain, we've all heard of different parts. And so the prefrontal cortex is what helps you with your executive functions, like making decisions, planning, regulating your emotions and your personality. And then there's also your hippocampus. It's like back this way, that helps you with your memories. And so when your estrogen levels decrease, that decreases what is produced in those parts of your brain. So your memory, you lose memory, you have brain fog, you can't make decisions, or you feel like you can't make decisions, but it's your brain, so you can't, because of you're lacking that hormone. Also, you have less, you're irritable, you have less tolerance for stress, and so you can react in a way that is disproportionate to what's going on. That's why women feel emotional. But because you don't have that hormone, your mind is not responding like it usually did, because even though the same things are coming at you, your hormones are different.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is almost like you may be having the same experiences that you
Yes.
had 3 or 4 years ago,
Yes.
but your emotional bandwidth is just completely different, which is
Yes.
why you're reacting to it so differently.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And you don't know it because you're just thinking, okay, my period stopping, this has nothing to do with my brain, but it has everything to do with your emotions, your cognitive function, how you respond. So
Okay. Okay.
mhm,
So when you say that you're more emotional, I heard you say irritability. Um,
yes.
I heard you say you feel like you can't make decisions, but what are some other, give me like some day to day examples of, feeling emotional.
Okay, so one of the things is you can't sleep. And so when you can't sleep, you generally that mess not I don't want to say messes up, that disrupts the way that you think you're functioning. Whether or not you can some people can have mood swings. You can be happy one moment or you'll cry the next moment or you'll be angry and you nothing has happened but you're angry, but you don't have sleep. Your your sense of self changes. You know that something is different, and so I don't want to say that you're confused, but there may be a bit of shame, and
Yeah.
so you want to hide the differences that you know that are going on. But if someone notices it, you become anxious or you may even become combative.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Also, as far as physical, you have sweats. It's not just night sweats, but you can have sweat. What are they called? I forgot what they're called, but
Hot
yeah,
flash.
yeah, hot flashes. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Yeah, you could have hot flashes. I'm like night sweats, but no, it's something in a day. You can be,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can have, hot flashes, and so you can forget things
Hmm.
because one thing that part of the brain that I was telling you about, we it your brain does so many things. It converts your short-term memory to long-term memory. When your estrogen levels are low, you don't have that conversion. So if you that part of your brain that works with your memories is, dysfunctioning, you're not going to remember things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because um it sounds like what happened prior to perimenopause and the way that you may have worked through some things in the past, it didn't work anymore.
no, it doesn't, because your hormones have changed.
Yeah.
Like you feel that
Hmm.
physically, maybe physically a little you feel the same, but the things that are coming at you seem to be worse because your cognition is not the same. Your
Yeah.
emotional reactive, the way you regulate things emotionally, that's not the same. And then because menopause happens or perimenopause starts between the ages of 45 and 55, you're at a different stage in your life. As far as your career,
Hmm.
you may have a higher demand because most women are making money and they're in management roles and they have children that they have to take care of. Teenagers, they have their caregiving for their parents. So you have all of this cognitive load, but your brain is like, wait, what's going on? I know that we've done this before, but I don't know what to do now. And so it's not the things that you used to cope before, it's not going to work because the hormones have shifted your brain function totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from a therapist perspective, right, when we're working with our clients and this life change is happening, we see it, we feel it, we know it to be true. From a therapist perspective, like how do we prepare our clients for that pivot? Because what you're saying is it's not that our clients didn't have coping strategies before. They had them, they knew what worked, they had a routine. It's just not working anymore. So as a therapist, what do you recommend for that pivot?
I would say we have to normalize um, these changes that are going on because uh, one of the things that I loved about the topic about being identity, a lot of our identity is based upon what we can do, what
Yeah.
we've accomplished,
Yeah.
how smart we think we are,
Yeah.
how we can multitask. And
Mhm.
so when all of those things seem that you were capable of doing seems to fail, people take that on as a personal character or trait of theirs, but it's not. It's something physiological that they have no control over. So even though we talk about the whole person and, this is who I am, we have to somehow separate that from being who we are as a bad characteristic flaw, or we're failing. And then after doing that, addressing the stigma, because people didn't used to talk about it, but I was reading in one of the peer reviewed journals that from 1990, I think 10 million women were, how they every 10 years they do the census.
Mhm.
1990, 10 million women were menopause. By 2020, they said 19.3 million women are going to be in menopause. And there was a study that I read. It's through Swan. It's something about women's health, that every year 1.3 million women go through menopause, start perimenopause. And so opening up a discussion and not feeling shameful about these changes that are happening, that make you feel fearful, that give you anxiety, that make you feel like maybe you are losing your mind, or you're not as good as you thought you were.
Mhm.
And also, I think another thing with, as a therapist, helping women dealing with the grief of what's happening to them, because grief, when we think of grief, we often think of just death, but grief can be changes that we didn't prepare for. And it is like, for some people, a death of who they thought they were or who they thought they could be. Because when you feel like you have no control, that right there causes, you to feel like, well, if I can't control myself, what else can I control?
What control? I,
Yeah.
I like what you said, when you said who you thought you were,
Yeah.
because the reality is you probably were that. You
Yes.
know, you
Yeah.
probably were that in your 20s. You were able to keep everything up here, and you didn't have to write
Yes.
things down, and you were
Yes.
able to multitask. And
Yes.
it's like you hit this life stage, and you can't think about what you did 5 minutes ago,
No.
right?
No.
Somebody's asking you about last week. I have no idea what I
Mhm.
did even 5 minutes
Yes.
ago. So some of it is it isn't even who you thought you were,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Because the reality is you probably were that person. You
Yes.
probably were able to multitask. So that grieving piece is uber important because
Mhm.
you're grieving the person that you was,
Yep.
and you're having to learn how to accept the woman that you are right now in this stage of your life. And so much comes with that. You
Yes.
talked about cultural expectations, and this series is about burnout, right?
Yes.
How to heal burnout.
Yes.
When we try and pull that old woman into
Yes.
a new season and
Yes.
do things the way that we used to do, and still try to maintain all of these relationships and expectations, that is a sure way to burn ourselves out before we even get started in this new season.
Emotional labor. Stop giving it away.
Yeah.
Be compassionate towards yourself, and also maybe establishing a routine. And a routine, like, you got to think about it. We have friends who are the same age, so we can all be going through something. That
Yeah.
girlfriend that wants to call you, and I've done it before myself. Hey, how
Mhm.
you doing? Girl, let me tell you what happened. Let's start asking, do you have the emotional capacity
Yeah.
so
To-
it is.
but you bring up a good point though, right? Because what
Mhm.
if I call my girlfriend? Say you're my girlfriend, Vernon. I call you and I say, girl, let me tell you what happened this week.
Yes.
And I'm gonna switch it up, and I'm gonna ask you, girl, I need to tell you what happened this week. But first, do you have the emotional capacity?
Yes.
Right? When we think
Yes.
about this from a community perspective, if you tell me, sis, I don't have it today,
Yes.
then how do I navigate and manage that emotion that I'm still sitting in, because I still want to respect her space that she's in, right? So
Yes.
how do I navigate that when I don't have that outlet?
I would say journal. A lot of people don't realize the importance of journaling, because I know when I'm thinking, my mind is going a mile a minute. Whereas if I write something down, I have an opportunity to look back and reflect. And as I'm writing, the more that I write, the more that I think, and I can even process that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I can get back to my friend, because I I think it's nice to believe that someone is going to always be there for us,
Oh
but
yeah.
that is just not that's just not the truth.
Not the truth. Yeah,
It's not.
it's not the truth. And also understanding that sometimes people give us advice based on their own capacity
Yes.
or their
Yes.
own trauma or their
Yes.
own unhealed spaces.
Yes.
So, loving your friend, loving your community, but also recognizing when that's happening so
Yes.
that you don't get more cloudy in your decision making. Um,
Yes.
because that's a real thing, and sometimes the advice is well intended,
Yes.
but it's
Not
rooted in some
working.
other things.
Yes, it is.
I
And
like that, Carolyn.
and I always I would tell people that it's always nice to have a support system. You know, you and your girlfriends, you can have wine and eat chicken and spaghetti, but your girlfriend, like you said, is not going to be able to look at all aspects, and she's not going to be biased as to being your friend. A therapist is not going to be biased. They're going to come from evidence-based perspectives and theoretical frameworks that we know work, mindfulness and different things like that. So it's nice to have that support system. But when it comes to, like we're talking about perimenopause, your brain function is actually changing.
Hmm.
Not only do you need that emotional support, but I think primarily you should talk to your gynecologist about the medical support and the medical changes that are going on with you, because once again, because it's in our brain, we really like night sweats or sweats. That's not that bad. Like if we had physical pain, I think that women would be more apt to go to the doctor and then maybe open up a discussion about why they're not sleeping, because that's one of the things that estrogen, or lack of estrogen, causes is you have disrupted sleep. But if there was physical pain, but you weren't to the doctor, because there is a physical pain and there are changes that, remember, there's a stigma. We don't want anybody to know. I may be losing my mind. I'm not as good as I thought I was. You're suffering in silence,
Yes.
suffering in silence. And
Yes.
so I think, like I said, it's not just it's the whole, the physical, the psychological, the physiological, the behavioral, and all of that has to be treated. You can't treat one without the other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, Berna. So I want to go back to this real quickly. You said journaling. I don't
Yes.
want opportunity for you to provide other coping strategies. Are there other coping strategies that women can engage in connecting with your community, right? You
Yes.
said
Yes.
journaling. Is there
Yes.
anything else that women can engage in?
I Okay, one thing, that routine, because I'm gonna tell you something. Keep in mind, when you are kind of confused or changes stress you out, and you're not tolerant of different things, if you form a routine, dinner, believe it or not, dinner can be difficult for a lot of people. So plan out your dinner, plan out what you're going to have, what you're going to cook, plan out, what activities you're going to do with your kids, or if you have parents that you're caregiving from, find those resources where you can get that break.
That's
You can have that respite, and then being self-compassionate, because once again, what we often do is not, I don't know why this is happening, I got to find what is wrong with me. And
mhm.
so when we start asking what is wrong with me, then we internalize. And
Yeah.
when you in internalizing, it just makes you feel shame and makes you feel angry at yourself, instead of taking a different perspective. Well, this is my body. I know, or I think I have control of my body, but I don't have control of my hormones. So it's not that I'm an angry person. It's just that my estrogen is decreasing and I don't have that capacity to, to not to respond instead of react.
Yeah.
So it's that we blame ourselves,
Hmm.
and this is not the time to blame ourselves or not give ourselves compassion, because we're already having a difficult time and your brain is functioning differently. And I don't know what kind of effect that will have, because going back to when the serotonin decreases, the because of the estrogen, lack of serotonin can cause you to go into depression.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons. That's how they find out that people are depressed, because your serotonin levels are so low. And we know what can happen when people become depressed.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. So, from a therapist perspective, okay, when you're working with your women who are experiencing perimenopause, how do you support them in navigating that space?
Once again, like making sure that they are getting the medical treatment that they need,
Hmm.
and then also having the opportunity to reframe, like I said, not saying it's something wrong with me, this change is going on in my body. And then also understanding that we are human, because a lot of times we like to think I'm in control, I can do this. We're not always going to be in control. And then being able to adapt, and adapting is not always easy. People can, oh, it, you have to get to a point where you can accept what's going on,
Hmm.
and you can understand what's going on, and then you can reframe. And
Yes.
that's a process,
Hmm.
because I often say sometimes we are at a point in our life, it depends on where you are. The price that you pay, sometimes you can't afford it.
Hmm.
The price that you have to pay, sometimes you can't afford it. And so you have to meet people where they are. And then that's another thing about people seeking help. Most people, when they are seeking help for psychotherapy, they've come to a point in their lives where it's really affecting their work, or it's affecting some relationship that they have, because
Hmm.
we see things that are happening. But once again, going back to, well, I don't want anything to be wrong with me. I don't, I don't want anybody to know. But we get to an impasse where, like, I just can't function anymore. My job, maybe I'm getting written up, or I, my husband is telling me, you crazy, and that's not the term to use, but when someone is reacting disproportionately to different things, or someone is crying all the time, or even someone who's not sleeping is like, are you a vampire? So
Hmm.
you helping people to understand you're human, and you're going through this change, and there's multifaceted levels that you have to get help for,
Yeah.
because you can't do one without the other. you
Yeah.
you just can't. We like to think that, like, when you go to the doctor, you have a cold, they give you that penicillin shot, you go home, you have your soup, and you have your orange juice, and you're fine. Perimenopause and menopause is not like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It's stages to the
Yes.
change process that you have
Yes.
to go through. And sometimes you can sit in one of those stages for a while, is what I'm hearing you say. I
Yes.
like, people hear therapists say all the time, creating a safe space. And I really think that that term or that phrase is often um, underestimated
Yes.
about how powerful that is, right? Because if
Yes.
you're using the examples that you use, you're interacting with your husband or your partner, and you're wanting to reach out to friends, but nobody really gets it. That safe space is your permission slip to say whatever it is that you need to say.
Hmm.
That is your time to process all of those thoughts that you've been having around this hormonal change that you're experiencing, so that you can come up with a plan. And
Yes.
here's the thing that I tell clients all the time: you have the power to make the plan, but
Yes.
sometimes because you don't have the safe space, you can't see it all the way through, which
Mhm.
is why being solution focused therapists, we're solution focused here at Pinnacle of Purpose. It's about the education, right? Like
Yes.
explaining to you what's happening,
Yes.
why this thing is happening, but the how is the game changer.
Yes.
The how is a game changer. And
Yes.
so creating that safe space for you to say the things out loud, whether it is self-deprecating or not,
Yes.
so that we can work with you on changing your language, how you speak to yourself, how you see yourself,
Yes.
and clear some of that up.
Yes. Yes.
Clear some of that up so that you can begin to make a plan for yourself. Like that's what the safe space is about. That's what I'm hearing you say, Verna.
Yes, thank you. And for you to say that, because you said even if something is self-deprecating and you can help refrain, a friend would tell you, because they're not a therapist, don't talk like that about yourself.
Yes. Because I say it as a friend,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
yes,
it's
yeah,
real. Yeah,
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 yeah. But in therapy, we're thinking that because we care about our clients, right?
yes, yes,
But we're also working to mirror that comment that you just made
yes,
and help you to see yourself differently.
yes,
Help you to see yourself differently. So yeah,
yes,
you can say the thing, you can say it, but we're not gonna stay there.
yes,
We're not
yes,
gonna stay there. Yeah,
yes.
I like that. Okay. I want to talk about this real quick. I feel like we touched on it just a little bit, but I kind of want to flush that thing out. When we talk about perimenopause and cultural expectations, specifically, for women of color specifically, like how do you roll with that identity shift when there's so many different expectations and so many different roles that you play in your family, at the workplace, and in your community?
Well, the what is it? Strong black woman trope. And the
Yeah.
thing is that that doesn't allow you to be vulnerable.
Mm-mm.
And when it does, you are seen as incompetent in the workplace or
Mm-mm.
weak. And so, as a black woman, what are you supposed to do? Because you're there for everybody, you overextend yourself often. And black women are overachievers. We're some of the most educated women in the United States. So we have these roles where, we're leaders or we're entrepreneurs, and then we're taking care of family, we're taking care of friends, and nobody wants to hear us talk about I'm tired, because remember, we wear the cape. We're
Mm-hmm.
capable of doing everything. And so we don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
We don't. So once again, going back to, you are dealing with everything, the not being able to sleep, not being able, your executive function is not working. So you're at work doing all this, and you still don't want to let down your community and your friends. So you overextend yourself, you keep quiet, and guess what? You get worse. And
Mm-hmm.
you may even be, because a lot of people don't realize that you can have, even though your estrogen levels and it affects your serotonin, you can have other like pre-existing mental health conditions, bipolar, anxiety, um, depression. And so you have all of this going on and
Mm-hmm.
you're still trying to push through.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a breaking point. I know I used to say, I don't break, I bend. I mean, yeah. And I know many people say that, but people do break.
People break.
People break.
Yeah.
And for the black woman, she is the center of the church. She is the center of the community. She is the one that everybody goes to for answers, because we are very high achieving. We don't even, because we know there's a term half step. We can't half step. We
Mm-hmm.
know that we have to be competent. We know that we have to be present, and we know that we have to be on point. And
Yeah.
so that's pressure. It's external, but it's also internal. It is. It comes from society, and being, not that we accept it, but we know the things that we want out of life and what we accomplish. We have to be the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's just a lot of that's more pressure that we continue to push through, and it makes it worse for us. And I, in one of the other Swan studies, black women, once again, going back to medical care, I wouldn't necessarily say therapy, but we are disproportionately disregarded when we talk about symptoms that we're having or how we're feeling, because for whatever reason, um, doctors don't want to medically validate us.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So,
Yeah. And what I say to that, even in, my own personal experience, I've had to advocate for myself with
yes,
medical providers. And so just making sure that if you are a woman, if you are a woman, and based in the research, if you are a woman of color and you are constantly having to advocate for yourself with your medical provider, I want to remind you that you have options.
yes,
You have options.
yes,
And it is okay to seek out another medical provider who is going to take their time, who is going to listen to you and take in consideration your lived experiences because you live with your body every day.
yes,
Um,
yes,
so I appreciate you sharing that perspective, Berna. And as you were talking, I was also thinking about boundaries, right?
yes,
Being okay, and I'm sure you have to do some work with clients around that boundaries, being okay with saying, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that, or unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show up in that way in this space right now in this season of my life, and not feeling shame around that.
thank
Because when
you
we talk about the strong Black woman trope, we want to be everything
to
to everybody.
everybody. Yep,
And you can be a lot of things
but you
to
can't be
some
everything to
people.
everybody.
You
Yes,
can't be that to all the people.
yep,
Um, and so really holding close to that and
yes,
making sure that you do a body scan. Do I have a capacity to even do this right now? Let me check my calendar so that I don't overextend myself. Give me a moment. Let me open it up and take a look at it so that you can, when you talk about their routine, right? You
yes,
can make sure that you have a good, solid routine for yourself and you're not overextending yourself. Boundaries for is very difficult, for us to establish. Um,
women in general, or black women.
women I really
Okay,
feel in general.
okay, yeah, yeah, because
I
we're
really feel
taught
that.
to help. We're
Yeah,
supposed to always help.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No, but no is a complete sentence.
yeah.
Because have you ever told somebody no and they actually, you're an adult and they'll ask you why?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or there have been instances where I really didn't know. I really didn't have an answer. I had no clue, right? Or I was scatterbrained because I had so much going on. And that for the other person on the receiving end, that was unacceptable for me to show up in that space in
Mm,
that. And so when we talk about, just the experience of a woman, the experience of women of color, this is what happens, which is why we internalize those messages in this space when we're pivoting and we're feeling like we have to push past because of the experiences that we've had with other people when we've attempted to show them and say, you know what, I don't know, or I'm so sorry, can you tell me where to go and look for this? Or you've
yes.
tried to say no without over explaining yourself. But I want to encourage you to just keep showing up,
Yes. Yes.
keep being honest about your capacity,
Yes.
keep naming how you feel in those moments,
Yes.
because the people who respect you, they're going to respect you even when you have an off moment.
Yes, they will.
The people who don't respect you, they were just looking for a reason anyway.
Yes. Yes, they were.
They were just looking for a reason anyway. So I just wanted to share that and add that to the conversation, making sure that you advocate for yourself if
Yes.
your provider is not listening to you. Make
Yes.
sure that you have really good boundaries
Yes.
and really ask yourself, am I internalizing this? Am I showing up from a space where I feel like I always have to have it all together? Am I silencing myself when I really should be leaning in and speaking up more for myself? Um,
Women do silence themselves, but keep in mind when they do speak up, what was that term? Nasty women. You
yeah,
can so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's why these spaces are so important. And I'm so excited,
Yes.
about you creating this space for women so that we can have more conversation about how this stage of life, may be impacting women, how it's changing the dynamic of the relationships that these women have,
It
uh,
is.
and how they can continue um, to continue to be their whole full selves, even in the pivot of it all. It's
Yes.
an important conversation to have.
Yes.
I know that you also want to share with all of the viewers
Yes.
just some tips and some tips on questions to ask your medical provider, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And we're not going to go over that, in this discussion, but you guys can be looking out for that. We will have it posted on our Instagram page. I'll see how we can post it on our YouTube page. I'm not really well versed with YouTube yet, guys. I'm trying to, get myself acclimated with that. But we will have that for you. That way, if you are struggling with perimenopause, you feel like you're going through a shift, you've been thinking about it, hadn't really verbalized it to anyone, but you want to have a conversation with your OBGYN or your primary care physician, you'll have a good starting point, a good
Yes.
starting point.
Yes.
Um, Verna, is there anything else that you want to say before we close?
Should I talk about the scale that I found that people can look at?
Well, you definitely can. Yes, you could definitely talk about the skill that you found. And if they want to, they can mention this skill to their primary care physician. So yeah, go ahead. You have the floor on that.
There's a scale that's easily accessible. It's called the Green Climacteric Scale, and it looks at behavioral, physiological, and psychological changes that you go through. And the great thing about the scale, 0 is you're not bothered. 3 to extremely bothered. So that's something that you can also look at because once again, you're going through these changes and you don't know, well, what should I be documenting? What should I be looking at? Because even though women have different experiences, some of the core experiences are the same, like night sweats, not being able to sleep, brain fog, and you'll have a baseline to start from.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
really good. And what we may do, Verna, is go ahead and link that scale so that our viewers can have access to it. They know how to find it, maybe print it out, take it to their primary care physicians
Yes.
or their OBGYNs, and they can be prepared for the conversation. So we'll work on that for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll work on that for sure. I have enjoyed this conversation.
I did too, Pearl. I just want to thank you being under your tutelage and leadership. You challenged me because I've been out of an academic setting for a while, and just being able to, because there are things that and sometimes you're afraid, I'm not going to express this correctly, but I thank you for your encouragement and guidance. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am looking forward to the rest of the series to see what our other Pinnacle of Purpose clinicians have to share with our viewers. And I appreciate your time. Bye, guys.
bye.